Like we live in a capitalist
Mhm.
world, and it's like there needs to be an element of understanding at least what value you provide. You know, we've talked about this ad nauseum past couple of episodes, I think, with people. That's capitalism. So you do need to put yourself in the other person's shoes and understand how you are received.
Yeah.
And so you do need to do
Yeah.
that at some point in the process.
Yeah.
The question, you know, that I don't have the answer to is what's the perfect balance between considering and taking in people's opinions as a way to, you know, operate within a capitalistic, you know, system, and like, and hopefully, you know, understand what value you provide, and when does too much of it get in the way? I don't have the answer to that magical balance, but you know what I mean by
Well, I
this?
do, and I would argue that even hearing you say that out loud, it's not so much that we shouldn't care or take it in. It's a matter of how personally we take it. Because if we were selling candles and talking about these reviews, you know, we would want to hear what people have to say, but it wouldn't necessarily affect our soul. As we always, the reason why this
Sure.
relates, especially to us as actors and artists in particular, is because an opinion doesn't necessarily seem like a reflection of always of just our art or a choice. It's like, I mean, we've talked about this in terms of even like basics of like getting criticism in rehearsal, getting a note. You get a note, it dings. It dings something inside of you because you're like, oh, that wasn't perfect.
Sure.
My choice, me, as opposed to like, no, I just want you to pick up the box instead of the shoe or whatever. And so it's like, it's like fear of people's opinions that turn into that feel like personal attacks on us and our souls, as opposed to what you're kind of also talking about, which is valuable.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and it's you know, it's hard. It's a hard line to, because I'll give you like an example. It's like, oh, like if I'm self-pitching to a casting director, and like, you know, my fear of their opinion is like, oh, like, you know, we'll talk more about like, oh, they're gonna think I'm desperate,
Right.
they're gonna think I'm a try hard, they're gonna think I'm, but it's like also like, you know, you don't just say fuck that entirely. Like you have to consider
100%.
that, because you have to consider, because that can inform strategy, right? And it's like, so if you're just kind of barreling, although I will say probably in this business, it's probably a good 60-40, if not 70-30 of the people who are really successful, you know, sadly, or most of the time, like sociopathic people who really don't give a shit, who really are like on their path, and it's like,
but how is that sociopathic? Because let me just say this.
Well, no, that's not sociopathic. That's not I'm just saying that like sociopaths are very successful in this business because they don't have. I'm not saying that they're sociopathic because they don't care about people's opinions. I'm saying that they don't care about people's opinions because they're sociopathic. And so like those people do, like, yes, they may ding a couple of, they may like stomp some heads on the way, and that's not what I'm talking about, or, you know, and that's not what we're going to be talking about. But it's like probably overall not caring what people think, even in this capitalistic system we're talking about, and overall, and then coloring it with considering others and how that relates to you and what you can bring. It's probably better to not give a shit of what people think, more so, in my opinion. Probably.
Or again, and to be honest with you, this is a whole other thing we could spend time on another time, which is, well, how do you filter? How do you so for example, you email that casting director and you self-pitch, and they say something like, you know, I mean, what if they were really explicit and they were like, you know, received this email, I have to say, you know, there are many modes at which, you know, you can try to get through to me or whatever it may be, and this does feel a little bit desperate to be 100%. Let's just say they said something like that. I'm making this up. Or you got back to you. You know what I mean? Like, your rep says, hey, we heard from so-and-so casting that you emailed them, and we have you to know that they felt a little pandering. And how do you then take that information and go, okay, well, what do I do with that? in a way that does it reframe my strategy? Do I and not what it, I think does to do.
I hear you.
Because even a step beyond, I just want to get to like a macro point that I want to make here too, is that the fear of potential criticism or people's opinions stops people from even making any action whatsoever.
That's right.
So,
well, and you're talking about fear versus consideration. Fear is something different than fearing people's opinions is different than considering people's opinions.
Yes.
Right. It's like,
yes.